Chapter 2. I said in mine heart, Go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, It is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. I made me great works. I builded me houses. I planted me vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruits. I made me pools of water, to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I gat me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great, and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not mine heart from any joy, for mine heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath already been already done. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. And I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Then I said in my heart, As it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. Seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool. Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor, which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether he shall be wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have shewed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor, and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, and who else can hasten hereunto, more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom, and knowledge, and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Here we see the first area of life that the preacher has to deal with. And he said in my heart, verse 1, Go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. In other words, I will establish whether or not happiness is available to man. Therefore enjoy pleasure. And behold, he says, this also is vanity, having sort of experienced it. And then he tells you what he's gone through. He said, I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? In other words, what makes you happy? I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, because wine was supposed to make people happy. And yet, he realized that that wasn't it. Then a little further on in verse 3, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under heaven all the days. You need to understand that the references for God and heaven here do not mean that he has an understanding of, as far as this teaching device is concerned, for God and heaven. What he's doing is these are sort of generic things, just as the Canaanites had their gods and their heaven, but they were not the true God. Then he says in verse 4, I made me great works, I builded houses, I planted me vineyards. And he goes through a whole bunch of verses here where he talks about all the things he did, all the things he was able to gather. Verse 10, and whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. Solomon had the money, the wealth flowing in, to have anything and everything that was available. And he said, and it says in verse 10, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and that was my portion of all my labor. He enjoyed. And then in verse 11 he says, and then I looked at the works of my hands had wrought, and on the labor I had labored to do with, and behold, again, all was vanity and vexation of spirit. There was no profit, again, under the sun. So you hear that phrase time and time and time again. In the sight of man, what was the point? And he says in verse 12, and I turned myself to behold wisdom. In other words, I pondered on what it was. And I sort of weighed it in the balance, somewhere between wisdom and madness and folly. Sort of, you got a couple of things you're sort of weighing it there. Is this madness? Is it folly? Is it wisdom? Whatever. For what can a man do that cometh after the king? He'd already done it all. So what else was anybody going to do? And then he says, a little later on, he gives the impression that, verse 15, then I said in my heart, this also is vanity, because the fool is going to die, just the same as the king is going to die. In verse 16, and how dieth the wise man? As the fool. Therefore, in verse 17, I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun again, is grievous unto me, for all its vanity and vexation. He did all this work. He did all of these things. He bore all the responsibility of being the king. He had all of the arguments and people and all the worries and concerns and the political pressures and the wars and the conquering and the labor and all the rest of this. And then it says, verse 18, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. He can't take it with him. And who knoweth, in verse 19, whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Well, we learned that his son really wasn't all that smart. Yet shall he have rule over all my labor, wherein I have labored, and wherein I have shewed myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For verse 22, for what hath a man of all his labor, and all the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and all his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. All depression, all tough, all sad. Now, we're glad we know that that isn't necessarily so, but one of the lessons that he's learning here is that even the kings, even the richest people, have difficulties, have challenges, have problems. And even though that's what he has, that hasn't made him happy. This is part of the teaching. He's going through the problem and the challenge and saying, you know, I've had all this stuff. You can't have anything more than I had. And then I'm going to leave everything that I have to a fool. Somebody who isn't probably not going to be as wise as me. What was the point of me doing all of this if I have to leave it to somebody who isn't going to be any better than me or even as good as me? A very wise thing to think about. We'll see what happens in chapters 11 and 12, how he handles this thought.